Hi, this is former WWE superstar Al Snow, and you're about to listen to Live and in Color with the one and only Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome one more time to the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Today we welcome an old friend of Wolfie's, Mr. Al Snow. Mr. Snow, how are you doing today, sir?
If I were doing any better, I'd be jealous of myself, boys.
That's awesome.
That's funny. Al, man, I texted you the other night, hey, man, will you do the show? You were quickly responsive to come on here, and I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you for having me on. I want to whore myself out anywhere I possibly can. So
I'm flattered, man. I'm flattered. The first thing, honestly, that I want to get, it's the elephant in the room, man. It really is, man. And I want to lead into it by saying this, man. Like, as a kid, my kids, everything, I was an avid swimmer at a young age, avid swimmer. Very good at that. And the thing with you and you were, Destin, I think it was?
Destin, Florida, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man. And I'll tell you, just to lead up to this, just to tell you, like I said, I was an avid swimmer. Always good about that stuff. But in Puerto Rico one time when I was there, I was body surfing, man, and I caught a wave, and it dumped me. It dumped me hard. It threw my swimming trunks off and everything. And that, it made me realize that a swimming pool and the ocean have different power and stuff like this. So I really just personally want to hear the story. Where were you? How was that set up? How did you get there? And, just give me a good story about that, man.
Well, my wife and I went down to Destin for the week just to kind of get away, and we were spending time down there with a couple friends. They have a vacation house down there, and, we went down, drove down on Monday, and, we got down there Monday evening. And we had, Tuesday we went to the beach. We only had a couple hours at the beach. And the reason this is pertinent to the story is that Wednesday a tropical storm had blown in. Okay. And rained, and the water was really rough. And so we couldn't go down to the beach. And we were going to come back on that Thursday, because, I've got OBW TV I got to produce every week. So right. We got to talking about it. It was like, well, shoot, we drove all the way down here. We only got one short afternoon at the beach. We decided we were just going to go ahead and stay on Thursday because the plan was not to be there. And Thursday we went out, and the water was a little rough. There was a section that the local lifeguard had put up cones on the beach to designate this area not to go in. Right. Because it was a little stronger, the tide and the waves were a little stronger there. And so, everybody pretty much steered clear of that area. Yeah. I was out in the water, and suddenly, just heard a commotion, heard some people yelling, and I looked over, and a little boy had floated into that area, and I could tell he was, yelling for help because he was trying to swim, but as he swam, not exaggerating, it looked like somebody had tied a rope to his foot and was just dragging him out to sea. Right. Every time a wave would come in, he'd just go backwards that much faster. And, I saw the mother was running down the beach, and she was, somebody help my son. And I didn't, it's nothing big. I did what anybody else would have done. I just took off, and I don't know how I got there, but I ran through the water. I didn't swim because it wasn't deep enough. It was shallow.
How far out was he?
He was starting to get further and further out, and and into stronger and stronger water. And I got there and grabbed him by the wrist, and because if I had missed him, I mean, Wolfie, that'd have been it. He was going to go, and it was at a point where anybody that went to try to get him beyond that was going to really put themselves at risk even more. And pulled him to me, and no sooner than I pulled him to me, a wave took us under, and I could feel the riptide was pulling on me. I dug my feet into the sand and pushed. I got to be honest, like for a split second, I thought of Chad Gaspard, and I thought, is this going to be the way I'm going to go? Yeah. And, I came up out of the water and, started pushing my way forward against the tide and, handed him off to the lifeguard. She was 5 foot nothing, and she was lucky if she's 100 pounds. If she'd have went out there and tried to get him by herself, it would have just pulled them both out into the water for sure. And I started cut parallel across, and kind of diagonally to the beach, and got up on the beach, and then all of a sudden all the adrenaline went out, and I was like, holy crap. I just about folded over the cooler that we had there on the beach and just stood there. And
and that's why I kind of led up to it with the fact that, man, I know how to swim, and then in Puerto Rico one time, the ocean earned my respect because it pulled me, it took me, it ripped my shorts off and everything like that. You think you're good, but Mother Nature, man.
No, you can't beat it.
Bad, man. She's bad. And that's just very cool that you were there to do that. I don't care who it was, somebody I know or somebody I don't know. That was just, honestly, you saved the kid's life, and, bless your heart for doing it, man.
Luckily we chose to be there, another day, and happened to be in the right place at the right time, and, was able to help, and it all worked out for the best for everyone. So, and I remember last year, Shad, he was a big man. He was not small. Yeah. And he went out and, to save his son, and, the tide pulled him straight out, and they didn't find his body for a couple of days, So, it was scary for a moment, just for a brief moment. It got really frightening. So
I believe it, man. But like I said, man, thank God you were there.
Getting engaged is a moment worth cherishing. A one-of-a-kind ring that you design at Blue Nile can help your love sparkle. Just choose your diamond and setting. When you've found the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Finding the right engagement ring can be nerve-wracking. At Blue Nile, you'll have the expert guidance needed and a diamond guarantee that ensures you're getting the highest quality at the best price. Cherish all of life's moments and save up to 30% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey folks, to get your official Live It in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
Me and you ain't talked in, 20 years or something like that. And I sent you a text, I guess the day that I saw it. I don't know how many days away it was. I said, hey, man, awesome, thank you. And you text back, but... And then that kind of led us to here. But, man, Al, you've done so much in this business, man. And I'll be honest with you, man. Just less than 30 minutes ago, I listened to, just because I want to do a little bit of research, even though we know each other, I want to do a little research on what's going on and blah, blah, blah. You have the exact same feelings about the business that I do. And the things I want to talk about today with you are... the OVW thing. And Danny Davis, when I got in the business, that was who I was married to at 18 years old. I worked with Danny through Memphis every single night. And then he developed OVW and blah, blah, blah. But, man, that guy taught me how to work. And I kind of want to know what your relationship with Danny is, and then how you be the OVW guy now. How did that happen?
Well, here's kind of how I rib myself. Danny and I are great friends. I love Danny dearly, and Danny's retired now and is down in Florida, and he purposely sends me pictures of him on the beach all the time to basically rib me. I had was back in Louisville and kind of visited Danny a couple of times, just kind of hanging out. And he just one day he goes, "Hey, you ever interested in buying a wrestling company? Let me know." And I was like, "Oh, sure," just laughed it off, you know what I mean? And so what had happened was earlier in the year, but actually the year prior, a young guy who was poorly trained, wrestled out in St. Louis, Missouri, and took a spine buster, hit his head, and had swelling on the brain, was in a coma for like 4 or 5 days, and ultimately they pulled the plug on him and he died. And I just thought, that it was absurd that we have such a proliferation of wrestling schools now, quote unquote wrestling schools. We don't have any real standards anymore in the business. And my wife, who is a licensed masseuse, I found it insulting that my wife has to have a license, that she has to go to a state-accredited school for massage. She has to be taught by a state-accredited teacher. Right. She has to complete a certain number of state-accredited hours. And she then has to basically have a certain amount of hours of internship before she can even take a test to get a license to do a massage on somebody. And the likelihood of her injuring someone in a massage is, it's there, but it's not, like it is with professional wrestling. Right. And, remember, I'm sure, because when you broke in, the people that broke you in, you were now responsible for their name. I mean, that carried a lot of weight. And that was why the business was so closed, was because people were held accountable, responsible for who they brought in. Yeah. And that's gone away. And it's led to the degradation of the wrestling business because there are no standards. And so as a result, I reached out. I know it's not a popular thing, but I reached out to the Maryland State Commission, the Louisiana State Athletic Commission. I reached out to the Missouri State Athletic Commission, and I even took it upon myself to go physically down to meet with the board of the Kentucky State Athletic Commission to propose just exactly that there should be a state-accredited school. It should be having state-accredited teachers. They should have a certain requirement. There should be a training license for wrestlers. They shouldn't just be able to pay their money and be, a professional wrestler. I think it's absurd. And, because no matter what anybody says or thinks, and you can attest to this, Wolfie, that every time you step in that ring, there are odds that you might suffer a life-altering or life-ending injury. Absolutely. And so, there needs to be a level of professionalism. And, I was, of course, turned down by all of them because they were more concerned about, they thought that it would affect how many people got a license. And as a result, they wouldn't have as much money coming in. Yeah, and we all know the thing in Kentucky especially, man. I mean, I have a huge opinion on this, man. The guys there, and I was there during that because when I worked for USWA, I never, ever, if I had one, I don't know about it. You know what I'm saying? As far as whatever. And then, 97 or 98, it came along that, Ian Rotten was doing all that stuff. And pissing contest with him and what's his name, Guntherman. And so then everything got all weird in Kentucky, man. So, I totally agree with that, though. Yeah, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere. And what they didn't realize is that in the short term, sure, they may have lost a little bit as far as number of people that were getting a license, but in the long term, the talent would be improved dramatically because of the standards, which then means that the shows that people attend, the performances would be better, which means that more people would want to come and pay the money to see it. As a result, the promoters would have more money to run more shows, and at the end of the day, the commissions would end up making more money in the long run than they would if they kept it the way it is right now. And the safety of the wrestlers themselves would be improved dramatically, which was really what I was concerned about. So, anyways, at the end of the day, I met my partner, Chad Miller, who's a really motivated individual in athletics and in sports and sports conditioning, and he was at the time, he was the executive director of the board. He resigned from his position so that he, myself, and the original partners, Joe Reeves and Larry Benz, we could purchase OVW from Danny Davis.
Yeah.
And Danny retired and purchased OVW back in 2018 and been plugging away ever since,
Yeah.
We've built it up where
it's been really cool. I'll tell you, for me, because like when I worked for OVW back in 99, 2000, something like that. It was WWE developmental. I was there. Cornette was pretty much the guy for that and everything like that. It's a whole different dude. I live in Somerset, Kentucky now. And I turn on the TV, and you're on TV every time I see it, man. Every different channels and different times. I'm like, man, he's doing great with this.
Yeah, we've expanded. I mean, regionally, we're on in Louisville, we're on in Lexington, we're on in Hazard, we're on in Bowling Green. Which is great because live event wise, we can operate regionally. Nationally, we're on I think 8 different national networks. We're on the YTA network. We just got on the Action Channel there, which is a combined reach of about 55 million homes. We're on Cox Sports out of Louisiana.
Who's doing that? Is that you, Al? Who's doing that? Who's going to have
that's me. That's me.
Yeah.
And then we're on Fight TV every Thursday night live from 7 to 9. We're the only promotion outside of WWE or AEW that if you're a young professional wrestler, it's the only place that you can get experience on live TV before you go to one of those bigger platforms.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I'll just say this, man. I saw the guy back before I got out of the business, and I like the gimmick just because I'm a mark for metal and stuff like that. But I see Ryan Howe still out there now, and I don't know. I love that the guy comes to the ring with a guitar thing. Somebody get that over for me. I love the Dean because I'm a Kiss fan, but anyway, get that over for me, man.
Well, we are. He's been great, because I turned him heel, but he's an oblivious heel. He thinks that everybody loves hearing him play the guitar. And he's great, but the thing is that I go out, I have him play it so long and so obnoxiously loud that people get mad, and it's been getting him a ton of heat. So he's been great. He's really hitting his stride. Yeah, I mean that's what being a heel. Guys don't realize that being used to. If you were the heel, everybody. If I ask these questions all the time of talent today, and they always get the wrong answers, because they just don't know. That's what's sad, and it's like, well, what's a heel's job? Well, it's to get heat. I'm like, no, it's not. The heel's job is to get the babyface over, whatever it takes to get the babyface over so that the heel can get heat, and sometimes the heel would purposely make themselves look like an ass,
You're 10 years older than me, and you broke in, I don't know, 5 to 10 years before me. I was 15. You were probably about the same age when you broke in, I think. But you probably remember this. I was always accustomed to what can I do to go out there and make my opponent look better, as opposed to how many spots can I get in. And that's where it's changed,
Yes. Well, and that's because, and I'm not saying this is a disparagement against the talent these days, but it's because they don't understand, and that is that And this is why they're so stressed, and they're so, they try to remember absolutely everything that they've called, is because, and they're so scared to make a mistake, is that they don't wrestle for the audience anymore.
Yeah,
they wrestle for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember that old saying? You probably haven't heard this in years, man. Don't get rabbit ears. And to coincide all this, Danny Davis was the person that I think taught me that, was don't get rabbit ears. We'll take it down, and we got no place to go but up after that. Yeah, that's
right.
The old school mentality, but everybody's got rabbit ears now, and now the rabbit ears ain't even rabbit ears, they're internet ears.
Yeah. It's the shift has become that the talent now sell what they do, not sell who they are and why they do it.
And I'll tell you something else, man. I listened, like I said, before me and you started talking, I listened to something else you were talking about. I was like, God, this is me talking. And I've always said this, man. I'm a huge mark for magic. I know that David Copperfield is not magic, but I do want him to tell me how he does the tricks. I want to sit there and watch that and be left in disbelief. And that's the missing piece to me of what's going on now. And, you have this argument of, okay, these old guys, Cornette, all these guys, they don't want it to go away, but it's still, you can't get somebody to believe in your shit a little bit if they know. Like, I can't make you mad, Al, if you know I'm trying to make you mad. That's where the heat goes, with the heels. I used to think, this dude was a dastardly fucking person, but now I know he's playing that character.
Well, it comes down to, and, one simple thing, and that is you're a product. Whether you're a heel or a babyface, you're a product. And what you're doing is that you're trying to sell who you are to that audience and make them believe in you. Basically buy into you, and totally believe who you are and what you're selling.
Right.
And that's great. And you can still accomplish that today. I don't care what anybody says, because a big news flash, and I've said this before on other podcasts, people didn't realize that wrestling was predetermined just recently. People realized since the 1920s that, at least in the United States, since the 1920s, that wrestling was predetermined.
Right.
In 1976, I was 12 years old. My family, I love them all dearly. None of them are Mensa candidates. None of them are, got a genius card. Okay? Everyone, I proclaimed that I wanted to be a professional wrestler. Every one of them proclaimed, why do you want to do that? That's fake. Now, how did they know that?
Right.
I love my grandmother dearly, but she had never wrestled in her life, But she stood straight up and said, why would you want to do that? That's fake.
But there's also the thing, and I guarantee you can relate to this when I say it, man. Every person that even up to this day, as things have changed, but especially back then and I've said this 100 times, when somebody met me and they go, oh, okay, wrestling, yeah, okay, you're a wrestler. Man, I know what y'all do is fake, but there was one time where I went to and I saw so-and-so and so-and-so, and that shit was real. And I just always think to myself, no, they were just good performers and they worked you, Yeah. But we go on social media and, well, I don't, and I don't think you do either. But guys go on there and they hey, thanks for the match, or just, I want to match, and no, man, no. The kayfabe
Well, and kayfabe is simply, that a lot of the young guys misunderstand. Kayfabe is not, they're just trying to lie to people or whatever. It's not. Kayfabe is respect for your craft, and it's respect for your audience. That's what it is. It's no different than if you go watch a movie and they spend millions of dollars in that movie, ensuring that at no point in time while you're in that movie theater should anything, even the slightest thing, happen out of place that takes you out of that world. Yeah. And that's all you're doing is for your audience. You're ensuring that at no point in time if anything ever happened to take them out of that world. And unfortunately for us, it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah.
It's not actors. You know, we are wrestlers, and we're selling the fact that we're prize fighters in a competition fighting to get paid, because that ultimately is the only consequence of losing, is that we may not get paid or not paid as much.
You can work the people sometimes, but I always made it a thing for me, and I know there's been more than one time where I've come back from the ring and the boys would be like, "Oh, he caught you on that, didn't he?" And I'm like, "No." I just sold it well and made you believe it, so I know they did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and listen, that's a moment of pride that you can get.
Absolutely.
You can work the boys and make the boys wonder whether or not you really got caught. You know for a fact that the people in the audience bought it, and you know, I would really encourage every young wrestler who's listening that instead of trying to have the best match on the show, which is of course ridiculous because you're having it determined by somebody who's never done it,
right?
Instead of that, why don't you have the one match on the show that that people in the audience question and go, you know, I know this stuff's fake, but you know, these guys look like they're really trying to kill each other.
Right. That's legit to me. And yeah, that's the thing, because that's what I always thought. Even I feel like I was, and I say this in a comical way, but my stepfather, he got me into wrestling when I was 8 years old, man. And we had one of the first four-head VCRs. You probably know that, Al.
Oh, yeah.
And Lawler and Kaufman did that thing, and I can't tell you how many times I watched that back in slow motion, trying to figure out to myself, because I knew they were working, but I was not convinced. And I had Lawler on a few weeks ago. We talked about this. Dude, that was the biggest work ever. It is because they worked it. They sold it and they kayfabe, man. And I cannot convince me that to a certain level, you can still do that today if
you can.
People
absolutely can.
Would just kayfabe.
Yeah, you can. And, you know, because I think that's, again, because people, the young generation aren't being taught that to understand that work is not, you know, I hear this term all the time. It's one of the most misused terms in the business these days. And that is, oh, he's a great worker. Oh, she's a great worker. Okay, what does that, how do you determine they're a great worker? Oh, they can go. They can really go. They can do it. No, that doesn't make them a great worker. That makes them a great athlete. That makes them a tremendous performer. That doesn't make them a worker, because to work somebody is to make them believe a lie. And the only lie in professional wrestling, the only lie that ever, and that's why I tell, there's no old school, that's bullshit. There's no new school, that's bullshit. In order for you to be old or new, you've got to have reinvented the wheel and no longer be round. Like somehow you made it octagonal or hexagonal. That we're no longer selling the same thing that we were selling in 1900, okay?
Right.
And that's just not the fact. The fact of the matter is, in 1900, we were only selling one thing, and that was that we were selling the finish, that we were out there to win and not lose.
Right.
In 2021, that's what you're supposed to be selling, that you're out there trying to win and not lose, and that win or loss has a consequence to it. That's it. You're not selling the moves, okay? Because at the end of the day, the reason football, baseball, and basketball have enormous audiences in the United States is for one reason only. And that's because we've all played those sports. We physically relate to what we're watching, okay? That's why hockey has a bigger audience in Canada than it does in the United States. That's why soccer is bigger all over the rest of the world than it is here. The top three most watched televised sporting events in the world are, number one, the World Cup of Soccer. Number two is the World Cup of Cricket. And number three is the World Cup of Rugby. Do you know why? Because the rest of the planet, all over this entire planet, play those sports. What do we not watch at all here? None of those sports. Why? Because we don't play them. Soccer has a bigger audience now than it ever has before because more generations of kids have been playing it.
Yeah.
But cricket, rugby, no, not at all. And professional wrestling, unless you've stepped into a ring, you're never going to physically relate to what we do. You're only going to relate to why we did it. And that's what's missing today is the why. Where's the why you're going to cheat? Here's why are you going to attack this guy after the fact or beforehand? Why are you, why are you trying to win so hard bad? That's what drives tickets.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more, man. But that is some serious insight when you gave the numbers on the other sports and things like that. That gave me a new insight on that, not going to lie. I do want to talk about this real quick, man. Do you remember, I guess it was like 2013, me and you met, I think it was 13, me and you met for lunch. And I was like, man, it's when I changed out of my PG-13 gimmick. I had already wrestled for OVW doing the Slash thing, and then I kind of converted it again. You know, I had this reinventment idea. I feel like I've always prided myself on having a good gimmick and stuff like that. And we met for lunch. You were still working for TNA. And I said, okay, it's called The Lycan Assassin. I showed you pictures, and you said, what's the backstory? To me, that was the last question I was expecting to hear from you. And it was like I had no answer for it. I'm like, I don't know. It just looks cool, Al. Can you help me out here?
But that's important because if you can't describe who you are to me, how am I then going to sell you to the audience?
Right, and today I understand that, but at that moment, holy fuck, man, I just reinvented myself, did all this, and you went, what's the backstory? And I'm like, fuck, I don't know, it just looks cool.
I was trying to help, though. I know. I do the same thing today when guys come in, you know, to the office in OVW, and they're, I got this idea, and I'm like, okay, great, what is it? And they'll, you know, I want to do this, and I'll go, okay, who are you? Right. And they go, well, I don't know. And I'll go, well, but if you don't know, how am I going to be able to know? How am I going to be able to sell you to the audience? Because the only thing I'm selling is who you are and why you're doing it. So if you can't explain that to me, how am I going to then explain it to the audience? Or how are you going to wrestle differently? Right. You know, because you really don't reinvent yourself. If you don't know those things, you're just going to go out and wrestle the same way you did when you were the other character. Right. Well, then that you really haven't changed, you know, and that's a big disconnect. Guys don't realize that. You know, if Steve Austin didn't wrestle the way Steve Austin wrestled, you know, it wouldn't work. He'd have never gotten over because he wrestled like a beer drinking, ass kicking redneck would have wrestled, you know, and that's why it worked. That's why it made sense, you know, and that's what it, you know, the same with Mick Foley and Goldust and, you know, and Undertaker. Undertaker wrestled like a dead guy. You know, he did things that made you think, oh, yeah, that's what a dead guy would do. That's why he got over, because at no point in time did he sell you this guy, and then when the bell rang, he started wrestling like he was a junior heavyweight in Japan.
Right. And you remember this, man. Not long after that, you actually called me, and I was laying in bed, and me and D-Lo talked about this because he was on the show the week before, and he was an agent when I came up there again. So it wasn't long after that. You called me and you said, hey, man, we're doing a reunion. What was it called? One Night Only or something like that? And you said,
oh, the ECW thing, yeah.
Yeah, for TNA. And I said, Al, man, I said, I'm hurt right now. And I was literally laying in the bed, like, just hurt. And I said no. And I told you no when you said we're doing a pay-per-view, blah, blah. I hung up the phone, and then I called you back. I don't know. It was like 5 minutes later. I don't even know if you remember that. I called you back like 5 minutes later, and I said, Al, I'll be there. And you said, you just told me you were hurt. And I said, I'll be all right, man. I said, because I think we were like 6 weeks out from doing it. Yeah. So it brought me back as Slash with Sin was my partner, Sin Bodie. Yeah. But up, and I think the whole crew, I've said this a couple of times, man, like when I thought about it, I was trying to get a job back. And when I showed up, it was me and Sin against LAX. And Jim Mitchell was there, who was my manager when I had the good TNA run, where me and Brian Lee were the tag team champions that had a great run and all that shit. Yeah. And like he wasn't with us, and I didn't even talk to, it was Homicide and the other big guy, I can't think of Sean. Yeah. And Supermax. Yeah, and I couldn't, like, I swear to God, it was, and D-Lo was the agent. Me and him talked about this. It was 15 minutes before we go to the ring on a pay-per-view before I even spoke to those guys. So the whole backstage thing right then That's what I really want to focus on, because to me it's
Sure.
I watch it back on tape and I'm like, this was not the match that I wanted to have to get a job back. But what was going on then? Why was everybody so down?
I don't know. I mean, I could speculate. I think it was because it was in such chaos. Impact was always in such chaos and turmoil, and they were always you got to give them credit. I mean, and I've said this plenty of times before. They produced and put on a show that they had a third of the talent that WWE had. They had a third of the production staff. They had a third of everything, and they put on a comparable show on a regular basis. Yeah. And that was because everybody busted their ass and worked so hard from the talent on down. Yeah. But I think what was so frustrating was because everybody was working so hard and we just kept losing ground. And and I think that comes down to, and again, it's just speculation, it's just my opinion, but I think it comes down to, and I think a lot of people make this mistake today, and that is that they were marketing to just the wrestling fans, just the hardcore wrestling fans, and not to the casual fans, and that's where the real money's at. That's where the real audience is at. That's whenever there was ever a successful, that when Memphis got hot, the reason it got hot was because the casual fans got interested and started buying tickets too.
That's always the thing. I've always said that, man. And this leads me into something that I was just thinking of to ask you about, because I think me and you mentally think about wrestling the same way. Everybody's pushing on AEW right now, and people just that I know and work and things like that have asked me this question. I don't think, they've got the momentum right this second, but it's still trying to take over the NFL in comparison. I mean, you're anybody that's always come after Vince is like trying to take over the NFL. I don't think, they got Punk, and what a great reaction he's got, and bringing in these new guys, but there's always that one person that comes in, every 10 years, there's that Hulk Hogan, there's that Stone Cold, there's that Rock, there's that person. They do not have that person that's going to take it over the top. I could be wrong. I don't know. But how do you feel on that when I say that about there's that one person with that X factor that just has to come along?
Well, I agree 100% with you. You always need that one, baby face that gets tremendously over. But the other part of the equation is that, and there's more to this answer. The other part of that equation is you've got to have a heel that has heat. Stone Cold Steve Austin would never have been as over as he was if he hadn't had Vince, and he didn't have a heel that had that kind of heat. Hulk Hogan would never have had the run that Hulk Hogan had if he didn't have a line of heels that could have been fed to him on a regular basis. He started with Orndorff, he went to Bundy, he just kept going down the line. Right. And they were all old-time heels that knew how to get their heat and knew how to draw money. So you can get that one guy, but you need the other. You need the opposite side of the coin. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But listen, at the end of the day, you're not going to out WWE. I want AEW to succeed. I want it to not just survive but thrive, because we need it. We desperately need it in the wrestling business. I mean, not just for wrestlers, but for fans. Everybody. We need them to survive and really be successful. But at the end of the day, you're not going to out WWE. And here's why. For two very good reasons. Number one, in any business, not even the wrestling business, any business, you start that business, as well as I do, Wolfie, that it takes 5 to 6 years to really make a business successful and get a certain track record and, build a certain audience or customer base or fan base and to create a certain experience that then generates income. And it's that simple. Well, they haven't even been around for 5 or 6 years yet. Right. WWE, and here's the factor nobody takes into consideration. Impact. I try to explain that to people in Impact. You've been around. We've been around for 13 years now. Well, congratulations. WWE has really been in existence to some degree or another since Vince's great-grandfather.
Right.
Vince's great-grandfather ran and promoted. Then his father, then Vince, great-grandfather, grandfather, father, then Vince. You understand? That is years of connections. That is years of experience. Okay, and WWE is an iconic brand. When I say that,
they don't even call pro wrestling.
They call it WWE.
Exactly.
You know, that's like Q-tips are an iconic brand for cotton swabs. Kleenex is an iconic brand for tissues. Band-Aid is an iconic brand for plastic adhesive strips. And I can go on down the list, okay?
Right.
But that WWE is that. It's reached that point where it is now what you identify wrestling as.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't, that's a lot to try to beat, period.
Yep.
And that's going to take not 10 years, that's going to take decades that they have underneath their belt. Vince has, from just alone, his run alone, he's got from 1980 to now of decades of success and failures, of what worked and didn't work and why. And, you know, this guy's making billion-dollar deals. You're not going to out WWE, you know. AEW at least is being smart, and they're trying to offer something that's a little different. Please keep pursuing that, you know.
Yeah, and that's cool because, you know, like we say, you know, they need competition. They need the buzz that is created right now, but that's like you just, solidified our both answers is that there's just not that thing right now. Yeah, it's creating a buzz on the internet and all that kind of stuff, but there's just not that person and that angle that's good because you've always got your, back then we called them mainstream fans, but I guess now it's, your internet guys or whatever that are going to watch wrestling regardless. They're going to watch both shows.
Sure.
Where they shit on them or where they don't, they're going to watch both of them. But until you get that person that takes it to mainstream, where you've got that motherfucker on Good Morning America, and things like that, it's just not going to overtake him. It's just not.
No, it's not. And it's great. You've got a buzz right now. Now capitalize on that buzz. Build. Don't just, think you're just going to keep riding that wave because you're not. No. You've got to, use that what you've got right now, and you've got to really build and keep building each time because, you pop the house to pop the town to pop the territory to start from where you left off to keep building further and further up. You're always trying to build higher and higher. They've popped the town, but they haven't popped the territory. They've got to pop that territory to now have a higher plane to now build from going forward. Yeah. And that's, WWE has been successful in doing it. They took their hot run in the 80s, built to where they popped the house, to pop the town, to pop the territory by creating WrestleMania. Then they used WrestleMania as a platform to build towards even greater and bigger events and more television exposure to pop further, And that's what AEW's got to do, and I really sincerely hope that they do, that they, and that the veterans there really try to, redirect, because I think also, and again, this isn't an admonishment or a disparagement of it's just an admission of reality of today, is that 98% of the talent that are in the wrestling business, there has been one thing that has changed in the wrestling business, and that's the mindset of the talent. When we broke in, probably 95% of the boys in the business, this is all they did to make a living, and all they cared about was, hey, how am I going to be able to, how are we going to get this over? How are we going to get this angle over? How are we going to get myself over? How are we going to get this heat? How are we going to get this to draw money? Right. Now, the fixation, the focus by the talent is not on how are we going to draw money. It's on how am I going to have the best match on the show.
Exactly.
And to clarify, for years, I've brought up, that everybody says that, Steamboat and Savage had their best match at WrestleMania. Hey, maybe they did. I remember watching it and really enjoying it, But from a fan standpoint, great. They had the best match on the show. But from the boys' standpoint, Hogan and Andre had the best match on the show because that's what generated 93,000 people wanting to buy a ticket.
Right.
And instead of showing up at a show and wanting to be Savage and Steamboat, which there's nothing wrong with that, but why don't you try to be Hogan and Andre, where you're the thing that now packed the house, you know? And that's what frustrates me is that for years now, everybody's been, it's not about, you know, I don't care about that. All I care about is, did I have a good match? Well, I do too, but you're the only reason you're in it. Your sole function, your sole existence in professional wrestling is now to be able to motivate someone to leave the comfort, safety, and security of their home, which now has become even more of a challenge.
Yeah.
Get in their car, drive to a building, pay to park, which is absurd, and then pay a lot of money to go sit in a seat that no one wants to sit around people they don't want to sit around, to watch you do your job.
Right.
That's a hard thing to do. And back to our conversation about kayfabe, when they expose it, when they demystify it, they're doing two things. And one is that they're familiarizing the fans with something that the fans aren't really truly familiar with. They're getting information, but they don't have any real knowledge about what happened or why, or because they're just getting, and the more familiar you become with something, the more contemptuous you become of it. That's why all the fans complain and piss and moan about Raw every week, but they watch it every week because they've become too familiar.
And I bet none of them have pulled up to a building like you and I have, laid in the floorboard of a car because we were riding with the wrong people just to protect our shit, right?
Yeah. And
it's
number
different.
two is that, you know, you're selling and getting these people to invest in you to the point to where they want to care enough to where they want to physically leave their house and pay to see you. That already is so hard because there are so many other options that I can just sit here, never leave my house. I can shop online. I can watch whatever. I don't even have to go to the movies now. I can watch HBO Max, and I can watch a movie that just came out yesterday. I can watch on my TV.
Like there are a lot more options now, and that's another thing that's the element in it that, you know, when we got in, we didn't have to face that.
That's true. But now you got to work smarter.
When the house wasn't good, you'd be like, oh, the fair's in town or this, that, and the other, and then somebody would go, yeah, McDonald's is open too. But now there's so much more. You don't have to leave your house, and you can watch whatever you want.
But that's the same as McDonald's is open too. That's just an excuse. Because if you're good at your job and you do what you have to do, then you're going to motivate those people to want to pay to see you. If you're not, they're not. Period. They're going to choose something else. You know, and that means you just have to work harder and smarter and also be intelligent enough to not make your job even that much more difficult by exposing it on the internet.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Protect it.
Yeah.
You know, it's your business. The wrestling business is the wrestler's business.
It's just the guys that, like I said, you know, congratulating each other online or, hey, promoter book this, me and my boy will have a great match or, you know, whatever. No, it's still got to be that thing of
a competition.
Dude, I'm going to go out there and fight him and, you know, we'll try to make you believe, but I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
It sounds so old school and, you know, some people will disagree with that, but I believe that there's a formula that will never be broken, and I feel like people have broken it a lot.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This is Steve Bowtie Bryant here. Back in the 90s, I was a pro wrestling photographer for the South. and I released what might have been one of the original sets of indie trading cards. I ran across some of these original sets. They were up in Randall Fanning's attic all this time. PG-13 rookie card, Ricky Morton, George Weingroff as the Sheep, Chris Champion, Reno Riggins, Billy Montana, Gary Valiant, the Scorpion, the Medic, Rick Reynolds, Jeff Daniels, Mephisto and Dante, Ben Jordan, Steve Neely, Marcus Woodrow, Clinton Charisma, Little Farmer John. If you'd like an opportunity to get these cards, contact me now. You can get them for only $49.99. Contact me at stevebowtiebryant at iCloud.com. Get your set now while supplies last.
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor.
Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
You know, you guys have given me some great segues. You brought up Randy Savage. You brought up the old school way. The formula will never be broken. Really, I was born in 1978. I'm from a small town in Virginia called Lebanon, Virginia, okay? We had really nothing, but we would go to Bristol to see wrestling, or we would go to smaller towns like high schools and stuff. Our biggest claim to fame was we had a professional wrestler from our town named Jim Hoot Gibson. Now, if you go on...
I remember Jim. Yeah, I wrestled with him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. This is where I'm leading to. If you go on YouTube and you type in Hoot Gibson, what pops up? Poffo, ICW, Al Snow. You know, he used to hunt with my uncle. They would go hunting with Ron Garvin and him. And can you tell us some stuff about Jim? I would love to hear a good story about him.
Well, Jim was a great guy. He was, was a good guy. I came down because, that was when I was first getting started. It was probably 82 or 83, maybe 84, but I doubt it was even that late. And, how you got started was you went around to the different territories and you were brought in just to do TV. You were brought in to put over the other guys, and that was it. And I remember I came down to work for the Poffos that day to do TV, and that was where I first met Rip Rogers for the first time. And he was like, he's got a piece of paper and he starts asking me how many matches I have. And I think I'd worked 2 years at that point or something. And, I'd been working, basically almost every day, close to sometimes 7 days a week. That was what we did. And, I'm trying to add him up in my head. I'm trying to tell him, and he's like, okay, so how many do you think were house show matches? How many were TV? Because house show matches are a full match. TV matches count as half. And he was doing all this math, and I know he was just working, but he took the time to he was adding and subtracting, dividing, multiplying, and at the end of the day, I only had 10 matches, according to him. Because he didn't know who I was or anything, So, we're waiting to get TV started because Randy is passed out on his floor in his living room. He finally comes to. He shows up. He's like a whirlwind. He's running around the locker room. He's calling, telling people finishes, telling spots. He comes up to me and he goes, hey, we don't really know you. We just need you to see you sell. That's all we got to do. We just need to see you sell. We don't need, we don't want any offense. Just need to see you. I go, okay. So Hoot in the match shoots me off. It's me and I think it was Doug Vine versus Hoot Gibson and Ronnie Garvin. And Hoot shoots me off and slips and falls. Now, I could have done something, and got on him or whatever, and, but I just kept in my head. I was like, well, they told me just to sell, so I just ran right past him and hit the other rope and came back because he was getting up off the mat, and he gives me a shot to the stomach. And, back then, somebody would walk out from the back with a towel around their neck, and that was the signal, the Iggy, that it was time to go home for TV. And Ronnie apparently thought he saw the guy early when he didn't, and he picks me up for the pile driver. Then, realizes, oh shit, I went home early, but he can't put me back down, so he has me up in the pile driver for like about a minute and a half until he finally puts me down with the pile driver and beats me. So,
hey, you saying that just brings up something that I thought a million times until I got in the business and learned it. And you did Memphis TV, man. When Mr. Coffee, God rest his soul, Coffee would come through the curtain, that meant go home. Yeah. How many people sat, whatever, in that studio and witnessed this little man walk out, and then all of a sudden that was the end of the match. It never
connected. They never realized. Never realized. Yeah. Yeah, I remember Jack Lanza used to grab his tie and pull his tie. That was the signal to Iggy for you to go home. You know? Yeah. So, it's changed. Things have changed now because referees have the IFB in their ears. And you can, talk to them. It still gets screwed up, but, you just think back how simplistic it was. And the reason it was is, and this is the only thing, God's honest truth, this is the only thing that really has changed about wrestling. I say is that it's the one thing that has changed, because wrestling has been and always will be a mirror of society and its times that it's in. But the one thing that has changed is the level of sophistication of the audience. The things that we used to get away with that were so much simpler, we can't get away with now because the audience is a lot more sophisticated, and you've got to. That's where I keep always telling guys, you got to work smarter. You got to really hook them. You got to work smarter because they're looking, they're watching, and if you can hook them, then they're gonna spend their money like water because you're giving them what they paid to see.
I think that's the same thing I was saying earlier of, if you can work the boys, you can work them. I mean, things, just little things like that. If I can make the boys convinced that, because I've had other ones where I come back and they go, God, were you pissed? Were you shooting on him? I'm like, no, man, I was just doing my shit. So if I can convince them, I can convince the marks. But also,
I agree.
Same thing, when you said that, made me think of what I do now, which, is sell cars. The people that are buying cars from me because of the internet, because of, the progressive intelligence you just talked about, they got the same tools as I do. So I don't try to sit there and work them on anything. I'm like, look, this is what your car is worth. You can look this up on the site, and I'll pull it up on my computer. This is what your car is worth according to the website you're telling me about. This is what I'll give you for it. This is how much mine is worth. And if we can do business, we can. If we can't, we can't. The world has changed in that thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And you've got to adapt, and you've got to know what you're selling. You're selling, in the car business, you're selling a continued relationship based on trust. That they feel like they can trust you, and that they walk out with a feeling that they weren't taken to the cleaners, and that both of you came out well. Both came out with good on the deal. In wrestling, you're selling who you are, so that, because if people, trust me when I tell you this, if an audience can believe in who you are, they'll believe in anything you do. Anything you do. Yeah. And you get them to believe in who you are, and then why you're out there in that ring and what's at stake. And they will pay to see you because they get what they want. They want to desperately believe. They want to suspend their disbelief and get wrapped up and emotionally invested. And if you're out there trying to just sell them on what you do, it's never going to happen. Right. That's never going to occur. That's where the disconnect's at.
One last thing on that, man, and we talked about this here, I think, a few weeks ago. There was a match in Louisville when the Smoky Mountain, and you remember this, although they didn't put you in part of that, it was me and Jamie, rock and roll, heavenly bodies, all that stuff, the whole invasion thing. There was a night, man, when me and Jamie and even Randy Hales, he got color. And they sent the medics out at the Louisville Guards. They sent the medics out, and we worked the medics. I mean, they didn't know about no blade job, no nothing like that. And, we worked them. They thought we were hurt, and they literally came out there, carted us back, and we did not break kayfabe for 2 seconds. We sold that thing the whole way, and then the next week, guess what? It was even better. So
sure, yeah.
So if you can work everybody, you can work everybody. But it's an art form that I just don't know if it's still there no more. But I wish it was.
It can be. It can be.
It can be. It can be.
I've got current affairs. I'd love to hear your take. So, as we always do, DJ, hit the music.
It's a current affair. It's a current affair. Love it in color. It's a current affair. Love it in color.
All right, we're back with Al Snow and the current affairs. So I asked these questions basically to get under Wolfie's skin because he is admittedly not watching current wrestling. Now, as a current promoter, I would imagine it's a little different with you. So my first one is pretty current. Right now in the WWE, there is a current contest going on with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, with them basically treating Paul Heyman like, well, a wishbone, essentially. And Paul is doing a great job with it. How do you book that entire storyline?
Well, there are a lot of variables, and it's tough to answer, because I've got to speculate on overall, what it is they're trying to do. I would assume, because Brock is part-time, the right business would be to use Brock to elevate Roman Reigns. Now, I said elevate. I didn't say get over. I didn't say get heat. I said elevate. To use Brock in the manner, to elevate Roman Reigns and make Roman Reigns more of an attraction on his own. And that would be the solid business that I would think should be done. And I think that's probably what they're going to do and Brock is great. Brock is, very well, he's really developed and became a really good worker. And I think Brock's going to, come in and be able to do that to help elevate Reigns and take him to another level and make him more of a draw.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal. I've even heard rumors, and we spoke about this with D'Lo, of them possibly ultimately leading to a matchup with The Rock at a future WrestleMania between Roman and The Rock.
If they're going to do that, then that's why they're going to use Brock to elevate Reigns as much as possible, because you can break The Rock in to work with Roman, but if the Reigns isn't properly elevated, then it's not going to draw.
Right. It's not going to make sense because The Rock would just go over him.
And there'd be no heat. And heat, just so we understand, heat's not anger. Heat's not aggression. Heat is not, it's a want. It's a need, a desire to see the outcome, an interest. That's what heat is, okay? You can build that want, that need, that desire into frustration, into anger. You can build that heat into those kinds of things, into violence. But that's not what heat is. Heat is that want, that need, that desire in the book, coupled with the belief that if an audience invests in it, then they are more than likely going to get what it is that they're paying to see.
Right. That's great. Thank you for that answer. The second one, as my small amount of time actually met Wolfie in the backstage at Showtime All-Star Wrestling there in Nashville, working as a manager. Where do you see the manager today? Is it a smaller wrestler? Is it a traditional Bobby Heenan, Jim Cornette? Where do you see the manager? Is it ever going to happen again?
Well, it may. You've got to understand that most of the managers that you used to see back in the day were former wrestlers. So they knew how to do their real job, which was to accentuate their man. When they're on the outside of the ring, their job was to never take away or shift the spotlight off of the person in the ring, but to, simply add to accentuate, to create a sense or feeling of more believability, and to help sell whatever their man was selling at that particular time. And they knew how to do that because they were all former wrestlers, and so they had that sense, that feel, that vibe of doing it. And so that's what's shifted. That's what's changed nowadays, is that you have so few of them because of the fact that you don't have many former wrestlers, former workers who now can take on that role and know how to accentuate and get over or add heat to the person that they're representing. You know, Paul is probably one of the last ones because, you know, he's been around for so long, so he understands what he needs to do and when he needs to do it and why he needs to do it to properly add to whatever his client or performer is doing at that time. And it's also a budget thing too, you know.
Right.
You're now trying to sell an act that as a promoter, I got to pay for two guys. I got to pay for you, and then I got to pay for your manager. Well, your manager better be good, and he better help to draw the house, because I hate to break it to people in the wrestling business, but this isn't Walmart. You're not hired. You're not entitled to get paid. You know, you're paid off the house, and you know your responsibility is to make yourself into an attraction, a draw that then warrants you getting paid and getting paid more because you're responsible for more people showing up at the event. The promoter's job is to make sure word is out and that as many people as possible in that area know that the event exists and that you're going to be there. Your job is to make sure that your name will motivate people to want to buy a ticket to come see you. Because if I put your name on a poster and you don't sell, nobody is willing to buy a ticket to see you, then you're not worth anything. I hate to break that to you, but you're just not. No, and that doesn't just work in wrestling. That works in every form of entertainment. That's why movie actors are held in higher esteem than television actors. That's why the Oscars are held in higher esteem than an Emmy. Because the television actor, you don't have to invest anything other than the effort of turning the television on to see them do the job. A movie actor like Tom Cruise, you've got to leave. He's got to motivate millions of people to leave their homes, drive to a movie theater, and pay $15 and up to buy a ticket to watch him do the movie. You know what I mean? So that's a big difference. That's why he gets what he gets paid, because that's why Arnold Schwarzenegger was a terrible actor, but he got paid an enormous amount of money and got to make a lot of movies for one reason, because people left their homes and bought a ticket to watch him in those movies. And he's never going to wear an Oscar, but he's sure going to pack a movie theater. And at the end of the day, that's what you want to do, is you want to endeavor as a professional wrestler to be the thing that drives ticket sales, not just be a great wrestler.
Right. That's awesome. The best advice. Any future managers or people thinking about being managers, that is amazing advice. Thank you for that. Now, my third one is a little bit of hyperbole for you, because I want you to, understand I've always appreciated your work. I think you are one of those that I would consider a cerebral wrestler. You're intelligent. From everything that I've listened to you or heard about you, you've definitely got some brains there. With that
people would question that.
Well, I get it. But with that being said, the forbidden door is now open. NWA.
What door is that?
Well, the possible forbidden door that brings in, these guys like Kenny Omega wrestling on Impact, these kinds of things. Anyway, where can you see OVW's place in that? Looking
right there.
Far along? Yeah,
absolutely. It's for anybody out there. OVW is a great option to. I'm sure they have talent that need polish and that need, experience and need a better understanding of just exactly what, and development, and OVW serves that better than anybody else, period. I always tell everyone this, okay? And I firmly believe in this. Because you have information on any topic, whatever the topic is, you can have all the information you want in the world, but you don't have real knowledge of that topic until you have a commensurate amount of experience, whether it's good or bad experience. If you have experience, you now have knowledge, you have an understanding of what that information is. And to prove that, if you go to medical school, anywhere from 8 to 12 years, depending on your specialty, the minute you graduate from medical school, you're not a licensed physician. You're not a doctor. And the reason you're not is because you haven't done residency, which is anywhere from a year to 4 years of actual hands-on experience, supervised hands-on experience. Once you complete that, then, and only then, are you now a doctor, a physician. And the point I'm trying to make is that, that applies to everything in life. Everything. We live in a land, in a world with a phone where your access to information is unlimited. But your real knowledge of that information is limited because you don't have experience in those particular arenas. And if you've never been a professional wrestler, then you can have all the information you want, but you have no real knowledge of what it is we're doing or why we're doing it. You can have an opinion, and you're entitled to that, and you're free to have it.
Can I jump in on this, because this is one thing that like really hits a nerve with me. I've always said this. This is my analogy. It's like, okay, you know, once we went from bookers to writers, that was my thing. I was like, okay, these guys, yeah, they come from Hollywood or whatever, and they're writing these scripts, but they've never been in the ring. I don't understand how. Would you want a coach coaching your team that has never been in football and won games? You know what I'm saying? Never been in the middle of the field. Would you want somebody writing something for you that has never been in the middle of the ring to know when, okay, this ain't working. This ain't working. We need to go here. We need to go there. That's the man. I totally agree with that, man. And that's my analogy on it. Is why would you want somebody coaching your team that ain't never been to the Super Bowl?
Well, and in our place in that world, in the supposed forbidden door, it would be in that role, you know, and it would be a place where guys could come and get developed and could be, you know, brought up and polished to where they could start to work their way up the ladder in the other companies and be more of a draw, more of an attraction. Because that's really what I focus on in OVW is I really, you know, I don't care how they go about it. I don't care how much they do. I don't care how little they do. I don't care how many moves they do. You know, none of that matters to me. All that matters is to me, can you do it to where it now motivates more people to show up next Thursday in that building to see you? And if not, then we're not doing the right things.
Right.
Are we motivating more people to want to tune in on Thursday night and watch the show? If we're not, then we're doing it wrong. Simple as that. And, you know, I try to really focus on and reacquaint performers in that manner so that they can, you know, and we run live events on a regular basis so that the guys have an opportunity not to just be in an empty building running drills, but actually out in front of an audience to develop a persona that will connect with an audience, that they can elicit an emotional connection and then drive ticket sales. You know, that's what it comes down to. Yeah. And we can operate very well within that world. You know, not one of us other than, you know, Tony Khan's got amazing resources and good for him. But Impact is limited, you know, Ring of Honor is limited, I'm sure. You know, NWA is limited. You know, none of us have the resources of WWE or AEW. So why not all of us work together and pull together and help each other? And, you know, and then that way, you know, all ships rise on the same tide. Yeah. Instead of us fighting over scraps, why don't we work together and put each other over? And, you know, instead of burying each other or, oh, well, you know, they're not going to, you know, they're just second rate or this or that, put them over. Hey, you know, NWA's doing their thing and, you know, good for them. And, you know, some of our guys go down there, some of their guys come up here, and it'll only help to benefit everyone. And what strengths I have, you know, someone else might have other strengths. And what weaknesses I have, someone with those other strengths might be able to help, you know, plug those holes that I have in my operation, where I might be able to plug some holes in someone else's operation, or, you know, both in advice or direction or management or talent, whatever it is, so that we all can work to better our odds of being able to continue operating and building something that, you know, the young talent have a place that they can actually make a living doing it, and then and understanding and connecting with that idea, and developing that talent to go up to bigger and bigger platforms to become actual real attractions, that where once the business is hot, it's hot for everybody based off of that. And then where older talent that have had runs can come back and reinvent themselves, can reinvigorate themselves and take themselves off into a new direction, and again, become an attraction that ultimately makes business hot again, that we all make money again. You know, that ultimately is why we all shake hands. Is that we all shake hands not for out of respect. We all shake hands because we all need each other. You can't be a heel and have heat if you don't have a baby face that's over. You can't be over as a baby face if you don't have a heel that has heat. You can't be in the main event if you don't have an opening match. You can't win if someone's not willing to lose. And hey, I've seen it. You can't lose if somebody's not willing to win. Yeah. So, you know,
no dragons without dragon slayers. That's what I always heard.
That's right. You can't have heroes without villains. You know, it's you could be Jesus, the most over babyface in the history of the world. Can't get more over than Jesus. Had great high spots. Walked on water, cured sick, healed the blind, turned water into wine. Yeah. But you go into any church, any Christian-based church, they spend 3/4 of the time putting heat on Satan. Why? Because if Satan ain't got heat, Jesus ain't going to draw money. Simple as that.
Right. Right. That's it. Speaking of that, I think we just had church.
That's the best analogy ever. Al, hey, man, I seriously want to thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, this has been awesome, man. Just being able to sit back with you. And I felt like we just had a 3-hour trip to Memphis or something. It was awesome, man. Thank you so much.
If you don't mind, I want to shamelessly plug.
Plug all your stuff and don't do it shamelessly. I want you to put it out.
Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. You can follow me at The Real Al Snow. And TikTok. I haven't put up any videos, but I will. The Real Al Snow. And I've got a comic book coming out with publishing.
God, I was going to talk to you about that, man. The comic book thing, I'm a huge mark for because I don't know if you've ever seen it. I mean, I've always been able to draw, and I've done some of it on social media and stuff like that, man. That is huge to me.
Oh, it's enormous. I love it.
Man, we're gonna take up some more time, man. Please tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. It's with Broken Icon Comics, and what we're doing is we came out with a 40-page double-size issue for the first issue, which is what's great. It's based off of wrestling, but it is not all about wrestling. It is.
Yeah, I have the character version of you, and I'm like, okay, so they're not doing it like wrestling based or whatever. You're like an Avenger. You're kind of like a hero or whatever, I guess.
Well, all the adventures take place because I'm crazy in my head. So the first one starts out, I'm in a wrestling ring, and I start to kind of fade because I'm putting a hold. And then next thing you know, I'm in a post-apocalyptic world. I've got a detective agency, and I overhear that this waitress says that she got her heart stolen the night before, which means she fell in love. But I think her heart actually got stolen, so now I'm going to go and solve the case because I'm going to get it back for her. And it's pretty ridiculous. And then the next issue, I'm a secret agent, and I am trying to infiltrate Canada, which is like is Russia to the north. So, and then we're also doing the Marvel team-up in between the ballads of Al Snow and Head. And the first one will be out, I think, next month. And I did a team-up with Chavo Guerrero, and we're doing like a Western on that one. So the top guys in the comic industry, guys like, that are artists for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Game of Thrones and, cool. For Marvel and DC, they all worked on it. And, the artwork's amazing. And,
yeah, it is. I think that's what, honestly, like I said, that's what turned me on to it, just because I can draw stuff. And I've always been a comic fan. I was a huge Conan the Barbarian fan when I was a kid, and then I always used to I think I've said this on here, but not to you, but I used to draw stuff out of Muscle and Fitness. I would use those body types to draw wrestlers, and I had my own federation and all this kind of stuff, man. But that's awesome. It's really cool that you have a comic book now. I mean,
I'm thrilled.
You got your own
when will that be released?
Book. You're saving people's lives. You're doing everything.
Well, it's released now. It's out on Broken Icon. They can go to Broken Icon Comics right now, and BrokenIconComics.com. And we've only been doing it direct right now. We haven't gone to the distributors yet, but we're going to the distributors, and they'll be out in comic book stores everywhere. I think there's a potential deal on the table to maybe even be in Spencer's Gifts at some point. So, so we're, I'm just thrilled because I'm such a big comic book mark and such a fan, and so to have my own comic book is just, it's like mind-blowing. That really is.
Totally cool. But thank you again, man. I mean, this has been an awesome interview. It just seems like every time I do this, I'm just reconnecting with people that I haven't talked to in a minute. And like I said, honestly, from 2013 and on, I felt like I was out of the business. But then doing this with the help of Jimmy has just made it like so much cooler, man. Just talking to you guys, you know, just people that feel the way I feel and know the things I know and have been there and done that. And it's been fun, man. I always have a good time doing this, and you've been an absolute 100% pleasure.
Well, thank you, Ben. I appreciate you both having me on. And, you know, if anybody has any interest, they can go to obwrestling.com. If they want any interest in the school, you can go to aswa.live, the Al Snow Wrestling Academy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Are you hands-on training? Who's training right now?
I have 3 trainers because I break it down into beginners, intermediate, and advanced. In each class, you learn certain skills and understandings that help you to learn the skills in the next class and make you a true worker. So, beginners class, I am right now, in fact, I'm about to leave and go down to the arena for a beginners class. We're going to, and I want to point out too, we're the only wrestling school in the world that are actually accredited by the State Office of Proprietary Education as a trade school. No one else in the world has that designation. So, so anyways, Mike Waldman, he teaches a beginner's class because he has a certain amount of experience level that he's perfect for. Tony Gunn teaches the intermediate, again, based on experience. And then I got really lucky because I have Doug Basham of the Basham Brothers from WWE. He came back, and Doug is teaching the advanced class because, of course, and I recommend this to anyone out there who is thinking about going to a wrestling school. If your dreams are to go to WWE, get taught by someone who has been in WWE. Because if you have it, they can't teach you what you need to know or what to expect or how to succeed if you have an opportunity, if they've not been there. No. And if your dream is to go overseas, be taught by someone who has the experience of doing it.
Absolutely.
Simple as that.
Tell Doug I said hello, man.
I will, absolutely. Yeah.
That I've heard from him, and we have some history. But, yeah, I totally agree on that. I did my own school in Nashville for a little bit, and, you know, it was successful. And I totally, man, if you want to go somewhere, you got to get trained by somebody that's been at least
that has that experience.
Like that, man. You can't get it from Johnny next door who wrestled at the flea market for a couple.
And I'm not taking away from the other guys. It comes down to what I said before. You can have all the information you want about a topic, but if you don't have experience with that information, you don't have real knowledge.
No,
and, you know, that applies even if you go to a college and you want to go for accounting, and the accountant is, you know, the professor is great. He was top of his class. He's never worked anywhere other than just teaching at the school. Well, then what's he going to teach you?
Right.
You know, exactly. What's he going to teach you other than the information that's just being parsed out through the book? So, you know, anybody could do that. But if he's worked for IBM, he's worked for Microsoft, he's been an accountant for, you know, he worked in the IRS as an accountant.
Right.
You know, now he comes to the college. Brother, he could teach you some stuff and tell you what to expect and how to handle it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, could have been setting better, man. But again, thank you, man. And we're gonna, once again, folks, thank you for tuning in to Live and in Color with Wolfie D. This has been Al Snow. We appreciate you. Tune in next week.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to lostwrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Join me, Gene Jackson, for the Jackson Interaction Podcast, where I'll be doing one-on-one interviews with people from the world of professional wrestling, as well as stand-up comedy. You can get them anywhere podcasts are available in both video and audio form, but you can find them all at genejacksonpod.com.
If you're a fan of rock and music, I'd really appreciate it if you took a moment to check out my podcast. It's called the Decibel Geek Podcast. We've been doing it for about 10 years now. We talk about Kiss. We talk about Ozzy. We talk about Motley Crue and Guns N' Roses and Metallica. We talk about all the legends from the 60s and on, up to brand new bands that you should be hearing about today that you're not going to hear on the radio. It's Decibel Geek. Wherever you find your podcasts, you'll find us there. If you love rock and roll, I can almost guarantee you're going to love my show.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WOLFE. I'm on Instagram at WarrenWolf13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at jamesrockstreet on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
I got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. He got a cap for your dome. And here we go. The original white boy that came out sagging, not bragging, don't be hating, cause I'm spitting the truth. Still livin' in color, from rush your mother, utilize a hubcap, unlike any other. Back in the day, I was N-O-D, and I was P to the G, plus the 1 and the 3. In case you forgot, they call me Wolfie D. Been cloned and copied so many times, tired of suckers taking credit for what is mine. You know who you are without me name dropping. Wrestling's first white boy coming out hip hop. Been doing it like this since 92. Laid low for a while and you thought I was through. Listen real close to these rhymes that I've injected. This shit's so sick it makes your ears get infected. Mad skills, no faking, there is no one great. Cause I'm bringing more folks from Obi-Wan or later. Not here to play games, so you better beware. You don't like me, so what? I really don't care. Like time I keep ticking and I can't be stopped. You sucker step to the side unless you wanna get dropped. With my finish, I'll straight knock you out. Please allow me to tell you what it's all about. I'm gonna wind it up, then I'm driving it home. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
This has been a James Rock Street production.